Well, we can kind of just jump right in on that if you want to, Eric. Um, I think we're kind of on the same page with some of this stuff. The boots on the ground are not the problem. I know your dad's detail leader and the number 2 guy. They're fantastic people. The men and women on that shift are awesome. Some of the problems are kind of at the higher levels. Do you have anything that you'd like to say about Secret Service in general? I mean, obviously, I know how you feel about your dad's people and how you felt about us.
Well, let me start with you guys. I mean, Scott, obviously, I'm here for a reason, right? You've become one of our closest friends in the world, and you're with us for 2.5 years, and we had a lot of fun stories. We traveled all over the place together. We had a great time, and there's nothing but obviously unbelievable love and respect, and some of the greatest times might have been in North Carolina at Christmas at Laura's house. Nothing's open, and you guys were sharing a table with the family, something that's probably not happened very often with other Secret Service protectees, to say the least. But I mean, we created a great bond and friendship, and just the greatest people in the world. And I know some of the people on that stage too. In fact, one of them right after obviously you went on for me, came onto our detail. She was the female that was on that stage, and I know her extremely well. Kate, she would have taken a bullet for my father in a heartbeat. She would have taken a bullet for me. And I can only imagine, and the professionalism of these guys is incredible. They'll never say it. But I can only imagine that they're sitting back at night on the couch, biting their tongue over what happened, right? Because they could have all been killed as well on that stage, right? Bullets were flying, and no different than they were flying at my father. They were flying right over them, and other people died, that were feet away. It could have been any one of those people, and I can only imagine how upset they are over the situation. But again, their professionalism will never come out and allow that to be said. They reacted incredibly well. Yeah. There's no question about that. They jumped on him. They did everything that they needed to do. God bless the CS guys, the counter sniper guys, because they took the guy out, and they did so kind of 1, 2, 3. Mm-hmm. At the same time, there's no question that something broke down. I mean, and that wasn't with the people that were with him. They showed up at the rally 10 minutes before. You know how that system works very well. They travel with him. They weren't in charge of securing the perimeter. Somebody else was, and somebody really dropped the ball that day. And one person died because of it, and my father almost died that day. He got shot in the ear, and I can only imagine what that would mean to the United States of America if the 45th president and very likely to be 47th president got killed by an assassin on live TV. I mean, it would make us look like a third world country. Yeah. But it's incomprehensible to me. I mean, with a over $3 billion budget and all the resources I know and all the resources I see. A lunatic on a roof at 130 yards. And, Scott, you've been shooting with me probably more times than anybody. I think you would probably say I could make that shot 1,000 out of 1,000 times, right? I mean, 130-yard shot's like a 4-inch putt for a good golfer. This is not a hard shot with a modern rifle, and it's really by the grace of God that the guy is here and the guy is alive. And, I am a spiritual person. I do believe the hand of God was on him. That slide's never been used in that presentation at that point. He's never turned around and looked up at that moment. The way he moved his head, the speed at which he moved his head, the closeness of the bullet, everything. I mean, the fact, again, is 130 yards is not difficult. And, you see that, 5-6 weeks later in Florida where, thankfully another incredible Secret Service agent happened to see a barrel popping through a bush. Had that person walked by and not seen it, had they been focused on something else, once again, you'd be living in a very different country right now. And so, listen, I think there's a lot of inward reflection that needs to take place. There's no question about it. And I think those agents on the stage would probably say there's a lot of inward reflection that needs to take place. Yeah. I can tell you that there's a remarkable difference between kind of the perimeter that's around him now versus the perimeter that was around him, 12 weeks ago. And I'm glad that they've amped security the way they have. Yeah. Because there's no question, there's bad actors all over the world, and they are trying to kill him. You know that as well as I do. You've seen the intelligence, and we've heard the intelligence. They are trying to kill him right now, and that hurts me as a son to say. But there's a lot of bad actors around the world that do not want Donald Trump to be president again for their own selfish reasons. And they better take the protection of these candidates awfully seriously on both sides of the aisle.
Yeah. No, 100%. And I know this probably goes without saying because we've known each other for a while now. I had been retired for about 2 years when this happened, and I know I know how hard I worked. I know how hard we all work, and it's just it was very disheartening. I felt like I had a gut punch because I was helpless. I was sitting here watching it, and I couldn't. I did that job for 25 years, and I would have given my right leg to be there that day. And I think any man or woman worth their salt would feel that way. And I was just so pissed that I wasn't there, and it was just very disheartening because like the sacrifice and the work and the, I've heard people say, like I do believe in the deep state. Don't get me wrong. I totally believe in the deep state. But for the Secret Service to be involved, I don't believe that. Maybe I'm wrong. I don't know. But I know what kind of people I used to work with, and I know what kind of people are there now. Are there some problems at the upper echelon? Yeah, maybe. But the guys on the ground are doing their thing. I just never in my life seen anything that egregious, like a rooftop not covered. I just couldn't wrap my head around that.
And I think, Scott, that's probably what leads to a lot of the conspiracies and the questions. I mean, I think there are a lot of questions surrounding that day, just basic answers that I want. And you and I have spoken plenty of times about leadership, but you had a Secret Service director who literally came out and said that the reason that roof wasn't posted because it was too steep for somebody to walk on. I mean, my 5-year-old daughter could walk up that roof like zero problem whatsoever. In fact, the roof that the counter snipers were actually on was substantially more steep than that roof. I mean, if you ever want to talk about laying down prone and shooting a rifle, there's probably no better angle that you could have been on at using the the hip of that roof as a place to obviously shoot off of. I mean, there's probably no better rest than the seat of that roof with a t-shirt to shoot down on, right? It's almost a shooter's dream in terms of setting up from a prone position, and it seems so obvious. But when you have a Secret Service director that, if she would have come out and said, listen, we screwed up, something happened, the communication broke down between us and local PD, we screwed up, there absolutely should have been somebody on that roof. That's one thing. When she comes out and says, yes, we decided not to cover it because the roof was too steep, I mean, it begs for rampant kind of speculation, because everybody can call that for being the nonsense that it is. Yeah. I know the CS guys. A couple of those guys are still good friends of mine today. I've shot with those guys more times than you can imagine. You know this. You were with me those times, right? And these guys are incredibly fit. They are absolute professionals at their trade craft. I mean, the guy took a headshot at 400 and something yards and in a second and a half and absolutely smoked the bad guy. They're awfully good with rifles. I've seen that, right? And it's hard to be good at that craft. It's a tough craft. But it's man, believe me, those guys can navigate a roof that's like this much of a pitch. And so I think when people do that, I think it discredits an agency when it didn't need to be done. I mean, you can have inward reflection saying we screwed up, or somebody else screwed up, or there was a lack of coordination with PD, and a ball was dropped. Okay, all of those things are fine. But I think when you come out and try and make excuses when no excuse can be made, it's awfully tough.
Well,
it's awfully tough.
Yeah, and people can
and then frankly, when 3 days later they're cleaning blood off a roof, you have agents cleaning blood off of a roof. I think that was FBI. When 4 days later a person was cremated. I mean, there are pets that don't get cremated as fast as this guy was cremated. Yeah. And I'm not trying to further this at all, but man, I mean, they get into people's phones all the time. They've broken into my phone a bunch of times. They just broke into Laura's phone last week, but you mean to tell me you can't get into the shooter's phone? I mean, a person who tried to assassinate the president of the United States. I mean, where are the answers? Where's the accountability? Where's any of this? It feels like America has just been left totally blind in terms of, was that person put up to this by a nation state? Was that person communicating with anybody else? I mean, there's just so little transparency, and I know for a fact there is zero chance that that there's deep state associated with any of the agents that's ever been around me, because I think, in fact, the exact opposite. I think the agents around me were always incredibly home team. Like beyond home team, like I think more home team than vast majority of people I've ever met in my entire life. Yeah. But it's I don't know, man. There was a lot of questions surrounding that day, and I think just people, common sense people just want answers to some of them. Why were they lied to? I mean, what was the purpose of lying to the American public?